Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and I have Sarah Garcia slash Moon Girl with me, and we are the Paranormal Dolls. We have a phenomenal guest today, David Oman, and he's going to tell us all about his paranormal experiences. Um, and I'm just going to turn it over. Hi, David. How are you?
Hi, girls. Fine. How are you?
And
Good.
ladies, yes.
So, tell us all about you.
Tell you all about me. Well,
He's a
uh,
Leo. He can keep on talking about himself.
gee, that's a pretty open-ended question there. Tell us all about you. Well, for the audience, I'll tell them about my experiences over the past 25 years now. Since we bought this lot found the lot in 1998, that I actually built the house that I live on, that I guess, infamously known for, or famously known for, which sits about 150 feet down the private driveway from where Sharon Tate's house once stood on Cielo Drive. Um, about what was it, late November on a Sunday morning in 1998, my father calls me up at 8 in the morning and says, "David, I found a lot." It's like, "Dad, it's 8 in the morning. What?" And he goes, "Just get up." Because I found a lot in Beverly Hills for $40,000 in the Sunday classified. Now, mind you, the classified section of the Los Angeles Times was again, this is pre-internet and
Mhm.
pre-Google, etc. So he would get up on a Sunday morning, read the newspaper, and go right to the classified ads, and found this lot. And I said, "Let me guess, Dad. It reads 40K." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "In Beverly Hills, Dad, a lot." It said 40,000. What is it, a vertical slope? So he goes, "Look, just humor me. Go meet me up here." So I got up, went off to this location. And when I got up here, I looked and I said, "Oh my God." And staring in front of me at about 150 feet away is this big wrought iron gate. And there's construction going on. I'm thinking, "Oh my God, that's where the Tate murders took place." Because we used to come up here in high school to check out the Tate house. Um, and to this day, people still do. So it hasn't exactly changed. So my dad pulls up in his Firebird, and I'm like, "Dad," I said, "that's where the Tate murders took place." And he looks at me with a scowl, saying, "Tate murders?" He goes, "We're here to look at a piece of real estate. Will you get focused?" So I turn to my left, and I look, and there's this slope of a hill going down, and I'm going, "That's the lot?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "It's pretty damn steep." And he goes, "Well, that's what we're looking at." So basically, a couple of months later, we ended up buying the lot,
Mhm.
and we started building the house about a year later because we had to go through the city building and planning. And during construction, I started feeling stuff around the house. That feeling that when you feel like somebody's going to come up behind you and they're creeping up behind you, going to go boo, and you go,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, all right, I got you. I felt your presence coming up." That was the way it was here, except there was no one behind me.
Mm.
And it happened so many times when we started construction, because we started from we built the house on a slope of hill. You built the first floor here, then you build the second floor, and then you build it up to street level.
Right.
And during construction, it was uncanny that a number of times I can remember just drop of ad going, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Stuff happening and stuff. And what was weird was the laborers would say to me, "Hey, David, were you here last night or yesterday after we finished and moved some of the tools around?" And I'm going, "What? Why would I come back and play?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm not playing pranks on you guys." Well, the air hammer was on the third floor last night when we left. And for some reason, we find it on the second floor in a room that we haven't been working in. And I'm going,
Mm.
"No, no, 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 no." I said, "I'm not that type of a person." So, after we finished, right before we were finished, I assembled all the laborers. There were 5 of them. and they were all from El Salvador in Central America. And I said, look, guys, we're about to finish up on the rough construction. We're now going to go to the finishing stages. And for the most part, you guys are going to be let go. And I said, everybody else, well, the people who are now going to do the finishing part of the construction are going to do that, and you guys are going. He said, but let me ask you, have any of you guys in the past 3 years had any weird experiences during construction? One of the guys raises his hand and says, "Sí." And I said, "Yeah, tell me about it." And he tells me in Spanish that about a year ago, in the middle of summer, he's down on the third floor, which is the bottom floor from the stairs, from the top floor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about 5 o'clock. It's July, and it's pretty stinking hot. And he goes and he's working. He's getting his bags packed. It's like 6 o'clock, correction. And he says, all of a sudden, he hears voices and footsteps echoing down the stairwell into the third level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the layout of the house. You have the top floor, which is all pretty much open.
Right.
It goes out to a balcony on the left side and the right side, and in the middle is an 8 foot by 8 foot across by 8 foot deep by, God, it's hard to say, it's about 40 feet down corridor, in which there is a wrought iron spiral staircase that goes from the first floor down to the second floor and then down to the third floor. So you've got
Right.
this large cavernous, I guess you'd say, stairwell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no entrance at the bottom. It's all open. It's a 12-foot high ceiling on the bottom floor, and it opens right from that landing into the room. And he says, I'm hearing these voices and footsteps, and I hear them coming from the top floor. And I said, Senor Paul, Senor David, está usted? So he comes upstairs, he goes looking around, nothing. He goes outside onto the driveway. He looks and he says, the whole place is empty. There's not a car in sight.
Mm.
And I said, yeah, I mean, I've been here at 6:30 in the evening in the summertime to see how the construction's going. And the place is dead empty. No one's here. And it's very, very light. It doesn't get dark in this area until like 8 o'clock at that time of the year.
Right.
So he goes, yeah. He goes, I didn't understand it. So I go back downstairs and I start working again, getting my stuff, ready to go. And 5 minutes later, voices and footsteps again coming from the top floor. So he comes upstairs with a hammer. He goes to the entire top floor. He says nothing. He goes to the second floor, nothing. He says, that's it. I've had it. I'm going. So he goes downstairs to the third floor, packing his bags up. All of a sudden, he starts hearing the sounds of footsteps hitting the hardwood treads that are on the staircase, going down the staircase. And he said they're getting louder and louder.
Oh.
And he knows the sound is very familiar to him. He says it sounds like leather-soled shoes hitting the treads. And he says, I don't know what the hell's doing. So I took my butt in the other room, and I'm sitting there about 12 feet away from the landing. And I said, it got so loud, it got to the bottom of the landing, it just stopped. So I assumed that they had gotten to the bottom of the stairs. So I come rushing out, and I'm like 5 feet away from the bottom of the landing. He goes, but there's nothing there. And he says, then it happens. I said, what do you mean it happens? He goes, this band of ice, cold, like he describes it like an ice cube that's like 2 inches wide, comes whizzing across slowly across the back of his neck, above his shoulder blades, below his hairline, right in that area, the nape of the neck that's exposed. He says it's dragging across. He goes, all of a sudden, he says, my body got stiff. And he goes, the hairs on my body, all of my hairs on my body stood straight up. And he goes, ados míos, ya me boy. Translated in Spanish, for those who don't know it, it means, oh my God, I'm leaving.
Right.
He didn't come back for 6 weeks.
Oh, poor thing.
During that time, I'm waiting for him because he's the guy that's doing the tiles in the master bath. He's been doing the tile work throughout the entire house.
Right.
And the last room he has to do is the master bathroom. And in the master bathroom, we went with natural stone. So it was really important for him to do it because he knew what he was doing and how to get it, how to arrange the natural stones in a way that were um, supposed to be. Because as I later found out, well, I'll just go to the rest of the story. So after the third week of him not being there and showing up, I said to the guys, I said, where is he? Oh, he's in San Salvador taking care of his sick mom. And I said, I'm too goddamn impatient. I said, that's it. I got to do it myself. I don't care. I've watched him. I said, you take the stone, the tile, you take the trowel, you dip it in the grout, you put it there and you slap it on there and you pop it on down there. You put the little plastic dividers in between the spacers. Big deal. Let's just say that is a load of crap. The guy had been doing it for 10 years. He could do it blindfolded. I start doing it, and I start to realize that you really got to make sure you measure the amount of sticky stuff of cement you put down there. You push them down, and it's like I can feel it's like not sitting right. I had to pick it up, and it's like, oh no, it didn't spread over here. I'm going, oh God, this. Make long story short, as it's done, after it's done, some of the tiles are a little taller than the other. Some are spaced a little differently than the others. And then I found out that natural stone, unlike man-made tiles, which are uniform, have natural veins going through them. And you're supposed to take them out of the box and arrange them in the pattern that is naturally cut from the stone, so you can get the pattern going. All right, here's one stone goes to this, the next one goes, oh, that's what you, like a jigsaw puzzle. No. The spatter's like, one's here, then the other one's going this way. It's like going, what the hell did you do? So when he looked at it, he goes, yeah, this is a pretty shitty job. He goes, I knew you did it, didn't you? It's like, he goes, yeah, it's bad. I said, what can we do? He goes, nothing. He goes, that's it. It's done. Your father doesn't want to spend money to buy new stone and redo the entire math. So to this day, people don't believe the story. It's like, come here. Look at this tile work in the master bathroom. You think the crown jewel of the bathrooms of the entire house, I would put myself in a position to say, oh, I want to make the story seem legit? No, it's legit. And so after I moved in, we started having stuff happen. Mm-hmm. My Rhodesian Ridgeback started barking at the front door, unannounced. And I say, all right, there's somebody there. Nothing. We would be at the dining room table having dinner, and we'd hear a knock, knock. The dog would start barking hysterically and go right up to the door. Open the door, my friends would, and there'd be no one there. And the thing about Ridgebacks, the reason why I got the Ridgeback and fell in love with them, besides the fact that they're a great-looking hound, their tendency by nature is not to bark just randomly. You know, the yappity yap. These are the antithesis of your yappity yappity dog. These dogs don't bark unless there's a threat to their home domain, or there's a threat by a person that's giving them the willies, and they're going to say, "Get away! I'm protecting my owner and my family from you." It's to warn them off, and otherwise, they don't bark. Well, this dog I have on video doing that routine when no one was behind the door, and it was strange as hell. And it was uncanny. And then we started having things happen where I was hearing voices in the middle of the night and sometimes during the day. And I'm thinking, whoa, what? And I'm thinking, it's one of the windows on the second or third floor that's open. Right. And you're hearing the neighbor who was down below, and he was on his rooftop deck talking. And I go through the house, and all the windows were shut. And then stuff started happening where we, one night I had a date here a few years after I moved in, and we're in the third level in that same room where the experience had taken place with my laborer, and I'm watching White Chicks, and we're in the middle of the movie, and when it's some part of the movie where it's kind of like quiet during the movie, all of a sudden we hear a man speaking to somebody, but not in the room, but as like coming down the stairwell. And I'm thinking to myself, God damn. I said, so I go in the other room and I pick up the telephone in the house, and it's a dial tone. I said, oh, I must have missed his call. I must have left an message on the answering machine. I pick up the other telephone and I decide to call the phone that's on the home machine.
Mhm.
And I hear ring, ring. And I thought to myself, wait a second. I didn't hear any ring, ring before I heard this man talking. How's
Mhm.
that possible? So I go tell my data sub, be right back. I go upstairs. I get through the entire top, second, and first floor.
Mhm.
No windows open. Go up to the answering machine. No telephone calls.
Mm.
Go look at the caller ID. Only call in the past hour is my call.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, gee whiz. I said, this is good. I got a witness that has no idea about the story, and I can actually get some information from her. So I go up downstairs and I said, all right. I said, what did you hear? She goes, what do you mean, what did I hear? I heard what you heard. I heard a man. It's like, yeah, I know that. I said, can you describe? And she's trying, like, what do you mean describe? I said, Caucasian, African American, what, Southern accent, Northern, what, New York, what? She goes, all right, I'll play your game. And I'm like, and she says, goes, late 20s, Caucasian, no accent, just having a conversation. Sounds like he was talking to somebody. I said, that's what I heard. She goes, like, what do you mean? Well, I said, I just spent the past 5 minutes going through the entire top floors to see if there was a window open. I went to the answering machine and I see there's no calls. I said, by the way, did you hear a ring ring before you heard the guy talk? She goes, no. I said, yeah, because my call was the only call that came in. Excuse me, as I'm saying this to her, she's like going like this, thinking, and imagine the gears of her mind are thinking and processing this. And then her eyes started going like this, like bigger and bigger. And she goes, do you mean to tell me that that was a ghost? I said, I don't know what it was, but I can tell you what it wasn't. And with that, that was the end of the date. She ended up taking off. I never saw her again. That was done.
It
Couple months,
wasn't to be.
I'm in my
It
bedroom.
wasn't meant to be. Yeah.
This is, oh, you go out with somebody who lives in a haunted house and you can't hang with it. Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be.
Hang, man.
Well, here's the funniest part. A couple months later, I'm in my bedroom. It's 8 in the morning. I woke up. I'm sitting there staring at the ceiling, which is the ceiling above me would be the floor from the living room balcony towards the kitchen. And it's literally my room sits right below that. So I'm sitting there in bed and I'm blinking my eyes, thinking, all right, I got to get up. And I look up to hearing the sounds of the footsteps. And I'm like, what the? And I look and I can hear the sounds trailing from the balcony above me, walking towards the kitchen across the floor. And I'm like going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not counting seconds. I'm counting the footsteps going from this direction to here because you can hear them going. And I'm going, holy crap. And I looked, I said, well, it can't be the dogs or the cats because my 2 dogs and my 4 cats were on the bed with me.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, well, I know that I've got the house alarm on and it's got an infrared motion sensor that scans that entire area. And it's on, and I look to my right, I look to my left, and there the alarm pad is there, and it's still blinking, and it's armed. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm hearing the freaking voices couple months earlier, and now I'm hearing the footsteps that my contract labor heard years ago. I'm thinking, oh God. I said, that is such, oh my God. I said, okay, am I going to get up and go upstairs and check it out? It's like, hell no, I'm going to sit here and check the dogs in the safety of my bedroom for the next hour. So I sat there for the next hour till 9 o'clock. I said, it's 9 o'clock. All right, I got to go upstairs. I got to get on with the day. I go upstairs. The front door is deadbolt locked. The windows are locked. Nothing has been touched. The alarm sensor hasn't gone off. The infrared sensor is working fine. And I'm like, that is balls crazy nuts. I can't believe it. So that in a nutshell is my story. You know, there's a You asked for an introduction. There's my
There
intro.
you go. There you go.
Well,
Now,
you did not disappoint.
that, so I'm curious because I would have been that one that would have counted the footsteps and then gone upstairs and kind of started walking the same amount of footsteps to see where it led. Did you ever do that?
No, but I knew I could, like I said, in the house, and I've had company here,
Right.
real people in the house, and you can, like I said, it's clear enough that you can hear the sound of the footsteps going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across the floor above you, going, okay, you're going into the kitchen,
There you go. Okay.
and it was pretty clear. It was like going, holy hell. And at the time, we didn't have the camera system set up in the house. But since that time, I've got some video footage on my YouTube channel from, I think it was like 2 years ago now. At like 5 in the morning, I woke up in my bedroom again to go to the bathroom
Mm-hmm.
and went in there. And as I'm cleaning up to come back to bed, I could hear, I don't want to say commotion because that's a little too dramatic,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely heard sounds above me and thinking, and it was funny because people said, "What did you do? What did you do?" It's like, I was goddamn exhausted. I didn't want to get up to go to the bathroom to begin with. But the fact that I did, and when I'm sitting there and I'm hearing, I looked up and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on up there? And I said, oh God, they're having a freaking party. It's like, great. I said, I'm going back to bed. And I went back to bed. I then reviewed the footage. And there's an hour-long video of that whole floor from all these different camera angles. And you hear conversations. You hear objects being moved and being like dropped, but nothing physically is happening. It's not like a physical, like a box or the book's getting knocked over.
Right.
But you're hearing this whole sense of just different sounds and stuff. I'm going, what the fuck? Holy moly. I'm like going, and people are just scared. It's like, no, when it bothers me is when they wake me up, but they're pretty good about not interfering with my sleep in such a way that it's so pronounced and making me
Right.
feel like, oh crap, they're bothering me. It's like, then I'd say, hey, you a-holes, cut it out. I want to sleep and I don't want you to disturb me. But like I said, it's for the most part, it's innocuous to my senses.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's because it doesn't bother me anymore and I'm not focused on it. Unless something happens and it's like, okay, I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets my attention. Otherwise, I don't really, how should I say, pay much attention to it at all.
Right. Right. Well, after a while, you just kind of get used to it, and as long as everybody stays in their lane, so to speak, and
Oh yeah, I'm
Don't
going to say,
say
stay in your lane.
your
Say, what lane are we in? It goes, we're dead. It's like, well, that's right, you're dead. I'm sorry. What am I thinking? What kind of car are you driving? That's right, you're not driving a car. You're in a Ghostmobile.
I live in a house of 1900, so I have my own share of tenants, as I call them. And I keep telling them, you stay quiet, you don't bother anybody on the second floor and the first floor, you could stay in the attic. And we're good. Very good. So
I've tried that type of, in a similar way, but I say to them, I said, I said, I don't care where you guys go and hang out. That doesn't matter. I said, just be respectful. I said, if somebody's not being respectful towards you, I would take it the same way personally that I would take it whether I was dead or alive. It's an irritation. It's a source of non-acknowledgement.
mm-hmm.
And I know maybe that's why the spirits I can relate to them and they can relate to me, is that when I was ignored, I took offense to it by some of these, by my family members. They would say, oh, just ignore him. It's like, really? You think that's going to help? I don't think so. You're just pushing away. What the old saying is the harder you push, the harder they're going to push back.
Right.
But then, yeah, like I said, I've never felt threatened. I've always felt appreciated, except for one time when I got an electric bill a number of years ago that was 3 or 4 times the normal amount. It was about $800. And I was like, my regular bill is $200. What the fuck? And when I tell the story, they go, "What, are you serious?" I marched down. I came in the house, opened up the letters. Like, I didn't not even take a beat. I walked straight across the living room, walked down the stairwell, walked down the corridor to the second floor, to the laundry room adjacent to where I am right now. And I had in my right hand the bill. And I was fuming. It was like, you didn't just add insult to injury with that act. And I said, spirits, I have in my hands a, God, you know what, electric bill. It's 3 times the amount that I usually pay. I said, I don't know who the hell you think you are. I said, the last time I checked, I'm the only one here that's wearing pants. And in those pants is a back pocket. And in that back pocket is a wallet. And in that wallet is money and a credit card and a debit card, in which this all is going to come out of my personal hide. I said, last I checked, and I went, you're not going to do this to me ever again. I will get the world's greatest psychics, the world's greatest medium, the world's greatest exorcist here, and send you packing. If you were going to send me to the God, you know what, poorhouse, I said, last I checked, I said, there was nothing here but a vacant piece of land. I said, and after 4 years since we purchased it to where we are when we finished it almost, I said, my mom and my dad and I spent all that time, my blood, sweat, and tears building this. I said, you're taking advantage of this prime piece of real estate. And you have 3 floors to occupy and hang out on. I said, where do you get off being so disrespectful? I said, do you know how I feel? I feel totally disavowed. And I'm laughing at you now, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm telling you this. I said, it's the biggest line of bull, you know what? That I'm trying to basically stand and posture myself against the spirits and saying, don't make me have to pay for this. And that was the last time I got an electric bill that big ever. But I remember what led me to that conclusion was it wasn't just a random act. It's like, oh, it's random. I had experiences 2 months before the bill came in where lights were going on in the middle of the night in other parts of the house. The televisions were turning on in other parts in rooms that I hadn't been in. There was an incident where my home phone and answering machine was hooked up to it was the cordless. It was hooked up to the receptacle near the bar sink. Mm-hmm. And earlier in the day, I was in the kitchen working and making something to eat, and I heard this weird sound like, and I didn't make any. I was like, what the hell was that? I went around the house. I didn't figure what it was. A couple of hours later, my friend called me on my son. He goes, hey, your phone's out. I said, what? He goes, yeah, I can't call your house. I went to the telephone extension where the machine was plugged into the wall, and the cordless handset, the base unit was, and I look at the gosh darn receptacle where the plug is, and it's one of those IFGs, which is it's a ground receptacle that's got a little, it's a water outlet receptacle there. So if it gets shorted, it automatically sets out the receptor. Has to be reset. So I looked at the little freaking button, and apparently the sound that I heard 4 hours earlier was that receptor being blown out. So I had to reset the thing and push it in, and the phone was now working. And I was like, what, 4 hours, no telephone? Because that's what you did to me? Some funny joke. And I realized that all those different occurrences were leading up to the electrical issues that we had the following 2 months later. And I said, that's why I went off my handle, because the spirits, because there was no one else staying here at the time. No visitors, nothing major where I would have had an unusual surge of usage of power.
Right.
So,
Wow.
Yeah. Well, for those out there who may not know, like, the history of Cielo Drive, do you want to maybe talk about it?
Right.
You want me to talk about Charles Manson? All right, in a nutshell, on between August 8th and August 9th, just shortly after midnight, about, like I said, 150 feet down the street on that property where Sharon
Mhm.
Tate's house once stood, 5 people were brutally murdered. Sharon Tate was a 26-year-old film actress married to famous Roman Polanski, who had made the movies Rosemary's Baby, and I forgot the other movies he had produced or directed. But they were living there. Sharon was 8.5 months pregnant. They had 2 live-in friends of theirs, Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folgers coffee empire, and Wojtek Frykowski, Roman Polanski's childhood friend, were living there with Sharon to basically keep an eye on Sharon in case her water broke or something happened and she needed to go to the hospital or something. Basically, to stay there with them to take care of her.
Right.
Roman at the time was in New York working on a movie, and they were there. There was also her ex-fiance and neighbor up the street, up Cielo, up Benedict Canyon. I forgot the name of the street that he lived on, but he lived literally less than a mile away from here, and that was Jay Sebring, hairstylist to the stars.
Mhm.
And besides the 4 people that were there in the house, there was a 5th person named Stephen Parent, who was an 18-year-old high school student who just graduated, who was visiting the caretaker, William Garrettson, in the guest house. Um, in a nutshell, since I don't want to bring too much attention to that story,
Right.
Sharon Tate, Abigail Folger, Wojtek Frykowski, Stephen Parent, and Jay Sebring were all brutally murdered at the hands of the Charles Manson family. And if you guys want to do research on it, be my guest. But I really don't want to get further into it because it's not my forte. Expertise wise, I have my own beliefs about the story of how it took place. And there's a cottage industry right now that people are milking to death
Mhm.
about, I don't want to say reinventing, but reassessing the sequence of events and the motives of the murders and the people that were all involved in it and the different reasons behind the murders. And to me, that's just not for me. I would
Right.
suggest looking up Scott Michaels at Dearly Departed Tours, Hollywood, and researching through him because he's an encyclopedia of death, pretty much, of celebrities. He knows where the bodies are buried, how they became bodies, and what the circumstances therein of. So look up Scott Michaels. He's a
Okay.
good friend of mine, and he's absolutely a fabulous human being to talk to and to listen to on his channel as well.
Now you have a book, right?
Well,
Let's see that
I
book.
have a
There
book.
we go. Yes.
This is the book.
Tell us about the book.
Well, the book's basically my attempt to set the record straight about my story.
Right.
Since I've been on bunches of television shows, Ghost Hunters, My Ghost Story, Paranormal Witness, and Ghost Adventures. And the thing I've noticed about those shows are that it's true. The TV is entertainment. It is
Mhm.
not. It used to be educational. It's a lot more. It's a lot more entertainment based. But after doing the 8 television shows in the U.S. And a few across the globe, I got tired of watching my story become dramatized, and some of the facts were correct, except in the portrayal of the facts. In some cases, the timeline was askewed. Meaning, in one show, My Ghost Story, you watch the episode, and my friends all sitting goes, "God, that all happened in the first 2 weeks you lived there." I said, no, 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 no. I said, no, no, this isn't the Amityville horror story. I said, those incidents took place over the course of 4 years.
Mm.
They said, what? And I said, yeah. I said, that happened in 2002. That happened in 2005. And they're going, what? I said, yeah. He goes, well, the way it seems like you moved in, all this stuff started happening. I said, I didn't make the movie until 2005. I said, what do you start making it until then? I said, these people weren't even in my life in 2002 when I moved in. So I basically, and of course, with Ghost Adventures, with what Zach said about the house being built on native ceremonial burial grounds, which is the biggest crock of poop that ever hit the fans. And I said, I'm defending myself to people who are telling me what he said. And the real key moment of this was when Scott Michaels
Mm-hmm.
was here. We were shooting Bridget Marquardt's Ghost Magnet podcast here in the house in the third level. And Scott started going on about, well, Benedict Canyon was all Native American ceremonial burial grounds. My jaw went slack and my thoughts went, the hell have I heard that before? And I said to him when we went to a break, I said, Scott, what that you just mentioned about Benedict Canyon is all Native American burial grounds, where did you come up with that? He goes, oh, from Zach Baggins. He told me this. And I go, since when did Zach Baggins have a degree in history? Since when does Zach Baggins have a degree in paleontology? Since when does Zach Baggins know anything about this GD area that I didn't tell him about for the show? I said, he has no effing clue. I said, Scott, I said, I hate to break this to you. That's a complete lie. I said, that is not the case. And what this all came about from or arose from was the fact that a number of years earlier, I had picked up the Benedict Canyons Association pamphlet that they sent out every 6 months. And I was just flipping through it and I found this article. It said Native American presence in the Benedict Canyon. I was like, what the? So I started reading the article and it says that in the early 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
that the original owner of Benedict Canyon and the whole surrounding areas was this Spanish woman that was African American and Spanish, and her husband, she was a widower, and her husband was this famous general or colonel, and he was deeded this huge plot of land, 4,500 acres of land that the Mexican government had deeded to her or to him, and it was entrusted to her for them to develop. And they were basically huge tracts of lands that they would give to individuals to develop, kind of like what they did later on with the Sooners. They would give away free land to people to stake their claim on the property, to develop it, to bring in the revenue so that it would become agriculturally sound and fit.
Right.
Well, it said, I later found out, it said that there was an incursion a mile away from where I live. And I was like, what? Chevy Chase in Benedict Canyon, there's a boulder and there's a placard saying on this spot in this spot in 1925, the remains of 3 Native Americans were uncovered from a battle that took place early on in the mid 1800s. So I did the research. And what it said is this woman, I forgot her name offhand, but she had her house about a mile away from there, down towards which is now Sunset and Alpine, and she had a ranch there, and her home was there. And the Native Americans that were the Tongva tribesmen, which were pushed back into the canyons, and their properties and their lands were all basically turned into walnut groves and other agricultural developments. They would have and make incursionary raids on her pueblo down there, on her little villa, and steal chickens and goats and generally harass them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on this one occasion, it turns out I think it was August of 1846, they came down there, and this time her ranch hands were prepared. And there started a running battle from her property at Alpine and Sunset that ended in the Walnut Grove, at which is now Chevy Chase and Alpine. And they buried the 3 Native Americans that were killed on the spot. Only to be uncovered 80 some odd years later in 1925 when they started building the Beverly Hills First Women's Club. And that location is literally less than a mile as the crow flies from where my house is
Mm.
and where Sharon's house stood. And what's interesting is the geography of where Sharon's house stood is that it's on the top of the mountain. It's not on the top of the mountain, but it's just below the top of the mountain. But it's a large plateau, a flat pad of land that looks straight down on the canyon.
Hmm.
So, since the Native Americans were basically forced up into the canyons, this plot of land was very, very useful as being able to sight and see the incursionary forces coming up the canyons.
Right.
Well, as it turns out, when the house was when we were building this house, that house was under construction as well. And I used to walk down there, and the owner then, Mr. Weintraub, was trying to sell the house, and he brought my father and I onto the property, trying to sell us that, developed property. Now, Sharon's house was torn down, and every time I walked on that land, it was just like got this, just like woo, wow, just a vibe, just like intenseness. And my friends that used to come over in 2002 that were gifted used to say, God, DAM, we feel Native American energies in this. And I'm thinking, what? Later on, a few years later, I read the article. And it's like, I didn't realize that the Native American history of this area, which predates the development of the area in 1870, was just thick, rich with history. And that's going back to the story of the book. I wanted to incorporate that history into my story to explain why there's so much energy in the area and the stories of what's going on in my house without a lot of a bias or a hyperbolic type of a taint about, oh, there's demons, there's devils, they're all. I hate that crap. It just turns me off to the paranormal going, really? I've lived here for 22 years now, or 21 years now. And I got to tell you, it ain't all that you see in television and movies. And I've been to Gettysburg, and I've been all around to the, what's his face, up to San Jose years ago, like 20 some odd years plus, closer to 30 years ago, up to that place, the Winchester Mystery House, before it turned into a haunted this and that. And I got news for you. It ain't haunted. as sure as I'm talking to you, I walk through that place, I'm thinking, all right, come on, spirits, where are you? Come on. And this is before Ghost Hunters and all these TV shows were even a dream in anyone's head. And I'm just going to say, I'm curious, come on, the spirits, where are you? And it's like, and I'm gifted enough to know that you can feel spirits. It was pretty neutral and blasé, and it was interesting, and the architecture was curious. And it was kind of like, what the hell is, you walk into a room, it's like, wait, this corridor goes to what? Which is funny, because when Mr. Alvin Weintraub showed us that property, it had striking similarities to the Mystery House. And I kid you not, the house was just like a pink elephant, meaning, what did you do? Who was the architect? There was literally an alcove that was like a hallway that went and it turned around till it got to zip. And I said, okay, what am I missing here? I just spent 5 feet here, 10 feet here, 6 feet here, and then turned the corner and there's nothing. I said, there's not a closet. I said, what is the functional purpose of this? I said, it don't make no sense.
Right.
So, but like I said, it's interesting to experience because I've been in this house now 21 years and I've seen a change in the dynamic of the energies to the point where in some places we would feel a wishy-washy feeling like you're rocking back and forth in a boat. And that used to be all the time. And nowadays it's it's an occurrence that occurs rarely, but it still happens. But nothing compared to the way it was in the first couple of years.
You think that has to do with the fact that maybe your house had a lot of activity, like you had like paranormal investigators, mediums? Do you think that maybe they tried to kind of like, I don't know, let them cross over or something like that? Or do you just think that they're just like, I'm done entertaining you guys?
Right.
Well,
What do you think that's?
When I first moved in here, and I'd say for the first, we didn't bring any psychics in here until 2004 on the anniversary. So
Mhm.
I've been here so by that time I had been here for 2 years. So it wasn't like I was bringing people in, and that was Rob Radowski and Al McCary and a few other people that were here. But it wasn't, um, it was still prevalent then. And here's the other thing: it more or less might be that I have become completely in tune with it and completely copacetic with it, so I don't notice it as much.
Right.
People are coming in the first time for their first experience; they still feel it, so that might be it. As far as
Sense. Yeah.
people bringing, I mean, Marianne Winkowski, the real life ghost whisperer, Lisa Williams has been here in 2006. And I'm trying to think of lots of other different psychics, Chris Fleming. Um, but Winkowski and Lisa Williams both said the same thing. They said that the house is like a giant ghost flop house. There's nothing we can do to stop that from happening. It's beyond our control. And to be honest with you, there's nothing to do. They're just coming in, they're coming out. There's some resident spirits that hang around here. And I'm like going, okay, so in a nutshell, there's not a hell of a lot I can do. It's like, basically, no. And nothing,
Right.
anybody says otherwise can talk a wicked game, but they're not going to have much effect because this is like a hotel and there's a revolving door, is what what Marianne says. She goes, you have a revolving door at your front door. I'm going, she goes, yeah, there's people coming in. There people going, forget it. Yeah, it's nothing's, nothing bad has ever happened. I will say this, though, that people that aren't, as you said earlier before we started the show, those who stay are meant to stay. Those who go away are meant to stay away.
Right.
And that's how it really is. It's almost, in my estimation, it's a great barometer and a filter.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how I feel about it. That's how I interpret it and how I deal with it. And when people are like, I gotta go, it's like, fine, go. An ex-girlfriend of mine years ago said, because I feel like it's a prison. It's like, if it feels like a prison to you, then there's something that is reflective upon you that is about you, not the house.
Right.
I had a similar conversation with somebody the other day. I'm like, when ghosts attack people or, hurt them, if you want to say that, I always think like, is it because they don't like them? There's something about them that they don't like, because you could be in a group where you're investigating and no one else feels something negative. No one else gets hurt or whatever. So I'm like, is it something about you maybe? Or
Well, it's true. I agree with you 100%. I had once an occasion where we had three guys were a paranormal team on YouTube, whatever, blah, big following, blah, blah, blah. And one of the guys, we were on the third floor in the theater room, and one of the guys said, the door shut on its own. And they knew, they were told, they were told that there were two cameras in that room and in all the parts of the house. And I watched the footage. As clear as day, the guy that was the third member of their team kicked the guy's darn door shut. And I'm thinking, I can see you as clear as a bell kicking the. So I brought the other two members of the team, and I said, by the way, I want to show you something. I said, you're about the door. I said, that's bull. He goes, what do you mean? I said, your gosh darn third member was the reason why the door. Showed him the footage. I don't know if it was disbelief or disregard or they were all in on it.
Right.
Because I just realized it's like, the reason why the two didn't say anything is because they're involved in the same practice of, well, nothing's happened. Let's make it happen. Let's, create some stir and a buzz that's, and it just dawns on me. That's why they were so not reticent against it, but upset. Felt that I was accusing them of something that was false. And it's like, but it's on the gosh darn video. You can see the gosh darn guy's foot,
Come
move, and then the
Why?
door shuts. But that's the thing that I've noticed. I just realized that some people, and I'm surprised that the spirits didn't, basically say, you're out of here before that takes place. Because, as I've said to people before, why would I fake anything for ratings if, in fact, that which is credibility can never be regained once it's lost?
Very true.
And that's why I don't play that game of ever trying to, as you say, I don't like to do that because that's bull. And bull is just, anybody can create something that's fake and salacious, but
Hmm.
once you're found out to be a fraud, you're done. There's no,
Yeah,
cross
not
of.
going back.
100%.
No.
And so that's why I said I've got the cameras. And people said, have there been occasions where you've had something happen and you can verify that it's not related to the paranormal? And I said, yes, it's happened before. And it's one interesting situation was there was a group on the third group of friends of mine were on the third floor in the guest bedroom.
Hmm.
And I was upstairs talking to one of their friends, getting something to drink, a soda out of the bar. And I was cracking up and I pounded my hand on top of the counter. And it's the top floor to the third floor, there's a space in between. So I'm not
Right.
thinking anything. About 10 seconds later, I hear the scream from the bottom of the floor saying, oh my God, we heard something in the. So I come right down. What is it? We heard a bang, a tap, tap from the closet. So I went up and I said, let's watch the footage. So sure enough, you heard tap, tap. I said, wait a second. Let's see what the other cameras in the rest of the house are to see if we can isolate where there's a possible transfer of sound.
Right.
Sure enough, at the time that they hear the tap, tap, I'm on the top floor, and I had just hit the bar, and apparently one of the support beams that goes from the top floor from the bar goes straight down through the floor below, which is the closet below, in the room below, to
Hmm.
that closet, straight down, all the way down. And I said, that's it. It's not ghosts. And I showed him the footage. I said, look what I'm doing. I said, look at the time code. Look at the time code. When you hear the sound, it matches. That was the cause of it.
Right.
Hmm.
Because there's no point in faking anything. Because once you've done it, you can't. And as far as people's reaction, you can't control that. But as far as my reaction to it, it doesn't bother me. I mean, people said, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you scared?" I said, there's an example of is a video I shot a couple of years ago, 1:45 in the morning. I'm going from the laundry room down the hallway towards the staircase to go upstairs to get something to drink. As I'm walking past my bedroom door, I thought to myself, spirits, I got you covered. I'm your man. And I threw my hand up,
Mhm.
right as if it's in response to the hand going up gesture here. And I heard knock, knock. And I stopped literally 5 feet from the camera, the stairwell. And I'm like, and you can see it in my face. There's no denying it. I'm shell shocked. I'm like, that lasted about 20 seconds. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. Why would a burglar do knock, knock? I said, to give himself up in a way. It's like, no, that's gone. So it's not a physical being. It's like, oh, and then I said, oh my God, the spirits can read my mind. Holy crap, there's no safe sanctuary. So I went from a petrified state, processing, going, da, 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 da,
Right.
go upstairs. I said, spirits, what the hell is that all about? So now you can read my mind. There's no safe haven for me. I said, that's it. And you watch the whole video, and I went through the entire house with all the cameras, and you can hear the knock, knock to different levels of volume, but it's like clear as a bell. There is somebody that's acknowledging what I'm thinking. But that's it, because you can't live on the razor's edge. Otherwise, you'll go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. You know, some people say, how can I do that? How could I go into houses or buildings with ghosts that I already know are there? I said, you don't understand. Every single place you go to, you may not be aware of it, but they're there.
Yeah.
You know, the earth has been around for a long time. And there's been a lot of people that have died, and eventually, you know, the spirits will come around. So just some places attract them more than others. That's all. It's like, yeah, it's silly. It's silly to think that we're the only ones here.
It's
That's for
true.
sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, you're also a producer. You want to tell us a little bit about that and the movie?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a producer in name only. In my estimation, until the film is out and released to the public, it doesn't matter what you've got. So, what you're speaking of is this my film, House at the End of the Drive,
Okay.
that was basically a fictionalized account of my story of a guy. It's a story about a guy who buys a house on a private drive, and unbeknownst to him, some years earlier, his property or where his house was once part of this huge estate.
Hmm.
The property being the end of the street was where this terrible murders took
Right.
place, which is quote unquote, how should we say, the fictionalized account of the Sharon Tate murders.
Right.
And what happened is 54 years ago, 4 people were killed at the end of the street. And then after that, they subdivided the lots leading up to the property and
Mhm.
built houses. But at the time when he buys the house, he doesn't know it. All the other houses are up for sale and vacant. So he gets the lot for a steal and he moves in and all hell starts breaking loose. And he doesn't know if it's him, if it's in his head, or if it's practical and it's actually happening. Either
Right.
way, he can't figure it out. He invites the realtor, his friend, the realtor invites his a blind date to come over for dinner. Turns out the blind date is the niece of the Sharon Tate victim, the Sharon Tate personage that died all those years earlier down the
Wow.
street. And it turns out the night that they're getting together is the 46th anniversary of the murders.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
So they go to the house, and it's both fact and fantasy because we use some of the true stories and elements of the murders
Right.
and the true story of the house that's there. At the time when we made the movie, it was under construction, and they left in 2 bearing walls from the Tate house
Mm.
and the kitchen floor still there on the property to get away with a remodel permit.
Mm.
So we incorporated that into the movie. Our four protagonists go into the property under construction in the middle of the night and get separated through circumstance and then get transported back to the night of the murders and become the victims.
Wow.
And they have to figure their way back to the present and also fight the murderers, of which the murders have already taken place historically, so they're already through. So that in a nutshell is the story.
Sounds very good. Very interesting.
It's an original story. It's like nothing else out there, and it's I guess it's under the horror genre, except it's more of a sci-fi ghost psychological thriller.
Right.
Because it has a few elements of horror, of gore, but it's not a slasher film by anything. It's not a it's not a Friday the 13th. It's not a Halloween. It's nothing like that. It's just, I don't get into all that blood and guts.
Mm. Well, I wanted to say thank you. You
Thank you
were
very much.
great, and please do let us know when the movie's out.
Oh, absolutely, I will. We're
Yeah.
working on trying to get it to one of the Netflix or some other platform to get it out there to get released.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. I'm really looking forward to it.
So
Thank
am
you.
I.
Thank you for being here,
Yes.
and please do come back.
I will be happy to, by all means.
Great. And
Like a lot to talk about, I feel. So please come
yes,
back.
yes. Thank you, Sarah, Moon Girl. And thank you, everyone, for being here and following us. And please do look up David Oman and his books and all that. So,
David Oman.
yes. All right.
Yeah,
Entertainment.
Thank
here
you.
he is.
Have a good one.
Bye.
You guys take care.
Please hold on for a second.
Don't leave, David.
Hold on.
Early.
Thank
We're not
you.
leaving.